Well, I just wanted to apologize for every single fucking version of Windows that sucked, which is basically all of them. Also, sorry for creating viruses just so I could profit from selling you the antivirus software. And on that note, sorry for spreading real viruses by profiting from vaccines and shit. Also, sorry for sterilizing so many of you. There's just too many of us, and some of you are not nice. That's why I'm trying to block out the sun. Anyway, I just came here to ask for a pardon from all the Epstein shit. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, guys? Obviously, that was edited audio. Bill Gates would never ask for a pardon when he knows Pam Bonnie's going to bury the case anyway. Anyway, tonight, we're going to look at a series of events in the past couple of weeks. By the way, there is a puppy sitting next to me. You want to come up here, Athena? Come say hi. So you guys can see, yes, I've got a dog on me, and I need to let you go now. My other dogs have been very good about leaving me alone when I'm streaming, but this puppy doesn't seem to know that I'm not talking to her. So anyway, that's Athena. So I'll try to get that out of the way. If you see me fidgeting, it's probably me petting this dog that's nudging at me. So anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. We're going to look at a series of events from this past couple of weeks, which I think combined mark kind of a watershed event in history, a moment in history, I guess you could call it. Hey, Mark, I see you there in the chat. You're probably not going to like this episode, buddy. But again, I take no pleasure in saying the things I have to say when I report the news. But two broad-based conclusions from the big stories that have happened in the past couple of weeks. First, but because of what's happened in Eurasia, there has been a fundamental shift of global power away from the United States and Western Europe and into Asia and Eurasia. And second, because I think that those events, Trump's reaction to them, and Trump's other actions we'll go over this week, spell doom for this administration. Trump is thrashing in the neocons trap that he has fallen into, as I've been warning week after week after week, month after month. Trump, don't do this. And he went and did it. And now he can't find his way out. So instead, like as if he's in quicksand, or like the Chinese finger trap, you know, the Chinese finger trap, where if you just try to brute force your way out, it doesn't work. You got to pinch it and pull. He's trying to brute force his way out of these problems he's got, and he's only making them worse. And I think all of them crystallized this week in this particular post on Truth Social. Let me pull it up here. This is, I'm sure you guys have seen this already, but this one, can I make this bigger? Was from 4 days ago. This is in reaction to the big two major events both in China over a period of multiple days. One was the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The other was the Chinese World War II Victory Parade. We'll go over all those. And so Trump responds to all this by saying this: the big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and quote unquote blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. That's not the important part of this comment. That's just Trump again, just insulting China about the history of World War II. But never mind that. That's not important. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. An infinitesimal fraction of the number of Chinese people that died. Do people have any idea how many Chinese people died in World War II? It was like 30 million Chinese people died fighting Imperial Japan. Anyway. Hi, puppy. Yes, I see you there. She does not know I'm not talking to her. I hope they are rightfully remembered and honored for their bravery and sacrifice. Has Trump ever taken a moment to remember the bravery and sacrifice of Chinese soldiers in World War II or Russian soldiers in World War II? Or has he only ever done it to insult their countries? Anyway, he says, and here comes the kicker: may President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. As you can, so obviously all the other stuff was just facetious, fork-tongued silkiness to get to the point, which is the direct accusation that these countries are conspiring against the United States. And a couple of things that come across absolutely clearly in this statement, unmistakable, no matter what you think of Trump or his policies or anything. This is bitterness. This is his embarrassment about what just happened with India, I think. And I'll go back to that because I don't think I covered this well enough in the past week, but he is so angry that Russia and China are getting together, and now India is getting together with them in a huge way. And according to Trump, conspiring, and North Korea, let's not forget North Korea, conspiring against the United States of America. And as a matter of fact, Putin himself actually answered this. And let me open let me open this as a file so that way I can pause it in context. I can't do that when I just play a whole clip. So let me pull this one up real quick. It is where is it? Here we go. This is
on the parade, and he said that he hopes that President Xi will remember American soldiers.
Okay, I can pause, but I can't do that. So they're asking
World War II.
And this woman,
and
this
he
reporter is
wrote,
reading off
it's
this.
unclear whether that was sarcasm.
So she's asking Putin what he thinks about this. And Putin's response basically is,
he should
God bless Trump, he's just joking around.
Send his best regards to President Putin and Kim Jong-un as they conspire against the United States. Well, President Trump has a sense of humor. It's well known. And we are on first name basis, and I can tell you, and I hope that he will also hear this, that strange though it may seem, but throughout these days, both during informal and formal talks, there was not one case when anyone voiced a negative opinion about the current U.S. administration. Not once during these 4 days.
So, a couple of things you have to unpack in that comment from Putin, because you can see what the reporter is trying to do. Like the reporter wants Putin to fly off the handle. Oh my God, how dare Trump say such a thing? And Putin just shrugs it off. He's just having a good, just having a laugh. That's our Donald, right? Answering Trump's really nasty remark with just kind of shrugging things off. But then also, Putin does go out of his way. Oh, that's not the thing I want to put back up again. Putin then just goes out of his way to say, not one person in the entire 4-day event in Shanghai, it wasn't actually in Shanghai, it was in like some Chinese city. Not one person had one bad word to say about Donald Trump. So, and let alone conspiring against the United States. Like, do you see the contrast here? And just to drive home, this is the other post that Trump made. I think this is like a day or two later. Trump posted this on Truth Social. Looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. Donald J. Trump, President Donald J. Trump. No, thank you for your attention on this matter, on this one, or the other one, interestingly. Again, bitterness and also impotence. Looks like we've lost, Also, by the way, passing the buck. Why did we lose India? We have spent years and years trying to win over India for the specific express purpose of using them as a check against China. And what did Trump do? Well, it was an absolutely massive miscalculation by Peter Navarro, I think, Trump's senior counselor on trade, that they thought that if they could shake down India and demand India stop buying Russian oil, that India would buckle. Oh, I'm sorry, massa. Yes, massa. And India instead said, buzz off. We're a sovereign country. We'll trade with who we choose to trade with. And by the way, they need Russian oil. So there you go. And then Trump says, we've lost India to China, to deep. What does he mean, deepest, darkest China? I mean, come on. And again, just the hatred, the seething coming off of this. It's inescapable, and it's an awful look. What is Trump even thinking? Why would you say this? What good does this do? What does this do to make the Trump administration look like it's making America great again? It looks awful. And I was looking for this clip last week, and now I've realized what I did. I saved it to my computer instead of putting it up as an S. But here's that clip I was talking about last week, where Peter Navarro can't seem to understand what's going on here. This is Peter Navarro on Fox News.
And can defend himself. And on top of that, by the way, the 25% of the 50% is because India is the Maharaja of tariffs. They have the highest tariffs in the world. So they export us a bunch of stuff. They won't let us sell to them. So who gets hurt? Workers in America, taxpayers in America, Ukrainians in cities getting killed by Russian drones. So I would look. Modi's a great leader. I don't understand why he's getting to bed with Putin and Xi Jinping when he's the biggest democracy in the world. So I would just simply say to the Indian people, please understand what's going on here. You got Brahmins profiteering at the expense of the Indian people. We need that to stop.
Yeah, and we'll be watching.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? And you see how I like how Navarro first he says he loves the Indian people, and then he calls the president of India. He calls India the biggest democracy in the world, and then he calls Prime Minister Modi a Brahmin, which of course is derogatory because India used to be a caste society, right? And the Brahmins were the elite class. So he tells the people of India, understand, like he's meddling in Indian politics, understand, Indians, how your leader is selling you out to Russia. This is Peter Navarro saying this stuff. And and this is like one of 3 or 4 appearances Navarro made where he's like, come on, India, what are you doing, man? Why are you selling oil to Russia? It's bizarre. Trump is very upset. And you remember it was only I forgot to cover this last week. This just happened the other day. Although I talked about something like this a couple of months ago, and that was that Trump seems to be saying over and over again, he wants to import Chinese students into the United States. And it finally caught on when he said it again the other day. And this time he put a number on it, 600,000 Chinese students he wants to bring in to the United States. So here's what Trump said. Let's watch the clip.
President Xi would like me to come to China. President Xi would like me to come to China. It's a very important relationship. As you know, we're taking a lot of money in from China because of the tariffs and different things. And it's a very important relationship. We're going to get along good with China. I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important. But we're going to get along with China. But it's a different relationship that we have now with China. It's a much better relationship. President Xi would like me to come to China.
You did it again. 600,000. I'm going to skip to the end here.
Economically than it was before. With Biden, boy, what he allowed that, I mean.
Okay, well, that was the end of the clip. So anyway, so Trump repeats it. 600,000 Chinese students he wants to bring into the United States. And you might imagine the reaction from MAGA on X was a little less than supportive of this idea. Now, I don't know exactly how many university students the United States even has room for, although actually some folks on the internet I'll tell you what they said in a second, but I did the math, and Michigan's got about 3% of the U.S. population, so that's 18,000 Chinese students in Michigan alone. And again, I don't know exactly how many students Michigan has in their college campuses, but U of M is and MSU are both 50,000 each, I think, something like that. So, I mean, that's a good amount, but still. So, I don't have the clip handy, but Howard Lutnick, another one of these geniuses in Trump's administration, goes on TV and just says, "Oh yeah, it's a great thing to have 600,000 Chinese students come into America's universities, because otherwise, who would they even take in?" The number he said, if we didn't take in these 600,000 Chinese students, we'd have to close 15% of America's universities. Implying that, first of all, why do we need 15% of our universities to be serving Chinese students? What benefit are we getting educating foreign students at American universities? Who knows? But anyway, that's apparent. Who knows if this is ancient history or not? You never know with Trump, because one day he says one thing, the next day he says the exact complete opposite. Yeah, Dennis Marburg on Rumble. Howard Lutnick, Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor. Precisely, Dennis. Yeah, and Dennis made some other comments. He says Trump team continues the follies of previous administrations, driving together countries which feel threatened. Sun Tzu would not approve. So when I look up like that, guys, I'm reading my Rumble chats. That's how it works, unfortunately, with my screen set up here. So I'm all kinds of distracted tonight. Got my third screen. I got my dog down here, but trying to hold the show together on my own. So let's power through this. So anyway, Trump comes out of this meeting last week with as his own meeting, not the one we just covered, but last week Trump had this meeting with the European leaders, as they call themselves. You know, the Europeans in the coalition of the willing. And so these guys, it was in the thumbnail of this video on YouTube, the picture they got together when all these leaders came out. These jackals tried to get Trump to commit to backstopping their forces going into Ukraine, trying to get America sucked into a hot war with Russia. That's what they've been after this whole time. And to his credit, here's one good thing Trump has done: refused to do so. He would not give them what they call the security guarantees. That's a word they've been toying with for the past several weeks. Trump met with Putin, and the Russians made absolutely clear there will be no ceasefire. So Trump then switched from that to the new, okay, there's no ceasefire, although the Europeans are still going after the ceasefire idea. But then the new thing is security guarantees. And what does that mean? And it's become this crazy war of, what's the word? Syntax, I suppose, is a word for it, or there's some other word I'm looking for. But the selecting of words, where to one side, the Europeans, security guarantees means like the NATO alliance, like we're going to go to war with Russia on behalf of the Ukrainians. And if we can't get the Ukrainians into NATO ourselves, well, then we'll just put some European troops in Ukraine, let them get into trouble, and then security guarantees, U.S. has to go in and go to war with Russia. Whereas what Russia talks about when they say security guarantees, they mean like a peace deal, like the settlement of the conflict. So anyway, so the Europeans meet with Trump and Zelensky, of course, who's apparently now wearing his Marilyn Manson outfit everywhere. So then this past week, after the meeting at the White House, the Europeans meet with Zelensky again, still in the Marilyn Manson costume. And it was just regurgitating more of the same. So much so that Zelensky himself snaps at them and says, this is all just talk and nothing's going anywhere. It's been all this just same stuff. So while Trump comes out of these meetings and he's in this funk, he's lashed out at India because he tried to bully them and it didn't work. Now he's stuck with these European losers who people hate them. You know, Trump, the approval rating of like the British prime minister and the French president are all like 10%. All these people whose the populations hate them, but also they hate Trump. Like, and Trump surely knows Keir Starmer hates him. The British even lobbied to help him lose the election. They were campaigning for Kamala Harris, and he stuck with them. And meanwhile, in Asia, here's what happened in Asia. Okay, I just had to play that clip because it was funny, but obviously a bad clip because it didn't have Modi in it. Although Modi was not at the World War II parade. But the point being that there is like enormous things did happen at this SCO meeting. So the biggest thing, of course, was this Power of Siberia pipeline deal, which they finally finalized. Over 100 billion cubic meters a year going from Russia into China, making Russia China's leading gas supplier. So all the gas that once went to Europe will now soon go to China. And this is after Biden bombed Nord Stream, which, by the way, Jesse Waters joked about this week. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. It was making the rounds online, where Jesse Waters, he's talking about this topic and says, yeah, Trump might need to bomb Nord Stream again. Or he didn't say the word again, but like as if it's just common knowledge that Biden bombed Nord Stream. But beyond that, this was an event with 5 nuclear powers getting together. And this, by the way, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a military organization. It's a defense-oriented organization. It's not like BRICS, which is like an economic thing. So 5 nuclear powers are there: Russia, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. That's more than half the world's nuclear weapons, folks. That's compared to, on our side, US, UK, and France. And really, that's mostly just us, because we have a lot. They don't have very many. And now North Korea is not just a pariah state with nuclear weapons anymore. Now they're talking with China. They're doing business with Russia. Over 20 major deals happened at this conference. And by the way, that military parade in China, Trump could have gone to. He could have gone to and been the guest of honor. I bet his advisors told him not to. And you can bet when he was watching everything going on there, he could have been there, been the center of attention. But no. Instead, the entire story was the whole world uniting against the West. What else happened there? Pakistan and Armenia, or as Trump calls it, Albania, but no, it's actually Armenia, established diplomatic relations. So yeah, I mean, kind of a lot of stuff going on in Asia, and this was the event the media could not ignore. I mean, these meetings, they've happened for years and years. The media in the West like hardly ever covers it, but they all couldn't ignore this one. It was just too big. So we have, meanwhile, again, Trump's friends with their take on it. Let's bring up the brilliant Kaja Kallas talking about, this is the Foreign Secretary of the European Union, I think is her title. And here's what she had to say about this.
You know, the Chinese are very good at technology, but they are not that good in social sciences. Versus, you know, the Russians, who are not good at technology at all, but super good in social sciences. So what are they doing? All the actors who are trying to make us weaker, they are actually, you know, finding the little fires that are existing in our society and pouring fuel into those, and both sides. So that, you know, suddenly you have, you know, really minor issues, really big fires. And everybody's like, where did that come from? In the age of social media, especially the attention span that people have, it is very easy to ignite people to be against something. And this is very hard.
So this woman is retarded. And she's like the foreign secretary of the EU. It's just incredible. So Trump's reaction, again, he could have been smart. He could have been the honored guest at this event. So at the military parade in China, they had, you know, they had someone to the left of Xi Jinping and someone to the right, which was Putin and Kim Jong-un. Had Trump gone, he would have bumped Kim Jong-un down because they weren't the only two others there. It would have been Trump with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. How would that have looked? Well, it would have looked like these are the 3 world powers. That's what it would have looked like. But Trump didn't do that. He stayed at home and did all kinds of other great things, including, of course, renaming the Department of Defense. You know, I had to talk about this one. The Department of War, or as Trump posted on Truth Social. Here you go. This is from Trump's Truth Social. You got him looking all tough, wearing the Zelensky outfit with the Joe Biden aviators there. No, I'm kidding. I know what that's from. And he says, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago, but to find out why it's called the Department of War. Which, I mean, obviously that's kind of a joke, I guess. I don't know. I think, first of all, I think it's good that it's called the Department of War. It's a step closer to honesty. I mean, it's not fully honest. I think they should make departments more truthful. Maybe how about Department of War Crimes? That'd be better. We'll talk about that in a second. But why not others departments? Why stop at the Department of War? You should change the Department of Education to the Department of Brainwashing. Change the Department of Commerce to the Department of Tariffs. How about instead of the Department of the Treasury, we have the Department of Counterfeiting? Maybe instead of the White House, we can call it the gold-plated house. So anyway, that was one thing Trump did. We'll talk about some of these wars he's got got cooking up in a second here. But there's also this. Can't forget about this. This is the actual clip from the cold open, not the fake one with the overdubs. Here's what Bill Gates actually said. They're talking about
and my second career is
AI.
innovation, innovating in health in areas like vaccines or gene editing. And the president and I are talking about taking American innovation to the next level to cure and even eradicate some of these diseases. He mentioned polio, which is one that we're close. We don't need new science on that one. For some like HIV and sickle cell, we do need new science, but the U.S. Has the seeds that in the same.
Well, anyway, so the whole clip they're talking, the whole dinner, they're talking about these two big topics, vaccines and AI. And strangely there, because you can see obviously Bill Gates is there. Mark Zuckerberg is also there. He's just out of the frame. But it's weird how these two guys Trump is sitting at a dinner with, who, again, opposed his campaign, his candidacy. No Elon Musk. No Elon, the guy that actually donated hundreds of millions of dollars to help get Trump elected. He doesn't get a seat at that table. But this is Trump for you, man. Treats his friends worse than his enemies. So there was that. And then, of course, the other big story was Trump hitting Venezuela. And by Venezuela, I mean destroying a boat with 11 people on it, alleged without evidence to be drug traffickers. Although, suppose they are. Suppose they were drug traffickers. As the Colombian president pointed out, we arrest drug traffickers. We don't just murder them. And yeah, again, this is... So I mentioned last week, like all these military boats are in the area. They are all, obviously very, very close to some kind of attack, but we don't know. Or maybe they're expecting an attack. In fact, there was a great post. I'll see if I can find it real quick from someone who made the point that what ended up happening was Venezuela, actually, they, believe it or not, Venezuela has some military planes, and they flew some F-16s around the boats, and no actual shots were fired. But the point being that it appears the order was only to fire if fired upon. That was the apparent rules of engagement. But what they did do, yeah, here's the tab I was looking for. This was on X. This is from Armchair Warlord, who is, despite his name, actually ex-military. He was, I think, a major. What happened here was the Venezuelans called Trump's bluff. If the Navy had orders for a war, they would have fired on 2 armed Venezuelan aircraft that showed hostile intent and made an attack run on a U.S. Navy warship. The Navy's orders are, in fact, do not fire unless fired upon. But here's, of course, a statement from the Department of Defense, which is no longer called that, but this has already been dated. But, today, 2 Maduro regime military aircraft flew near a U.S. Navy vessel in international waters. This highly provocative move was designed to interfere with our counter-narco-terror operations. Really? Do you need aircraft carriers, destroyers, cruise missiles to fight narco-terrorism? Does that sound like a narco-terrorist fighting to you folks? Because we haven't seen any kind of tactics like that used ever, although the obvious pretext is that Venezuela has one of the world's largest supplies of oil, if not the largest supply of oil, not to mention other precious natural resources. So they say the cartel running Venezuela is strongly advised not to pursue any further effort to obstruct, deter, interfere with blah, blah, blah. At no point, just like the Iraq War, at no point. Well, actually, worse than the Iraq War. Remember the Iraq War? They at least tried to show evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Remember Colin Powell dangling that thing of fake anthrax in front of Congress? No effort whatsoever to substantiate any of the facts they allege. That the Maduro administration is involved in narco-terrorism, that the Tren de Agua cartel is part of the Venezuelan government, that they are in fact engaged in narco-trafficking, which is disputed, by the way. That the gang's actual focus might be human trafficking rather than drug trafficking, but I don't know. Although I have seen a fair amount of people, and I'm not an expert on it, so I'm not going to assert these as facts, but a lot of people are saying, no, the real source of a lot of these drugs is, well, cocaine, obviously, Colombia, but fentanyl. You know, if you guys think back, I'm sure you've heard, as we've all heard, that fentanyl comes from China via Mexico. Haven't you heard that? I know I've heard Ann Coulter say that like 100,000 times. And I'm sure she's not the only person who has. That fentanyl doesn't come from South America. So, where's the substantiation on this stuff? They don't grow opium in South America. They grow it in like Afghanistan, like the Caucasus area. So, anyway, so there was that. This whole thing smells like weakness again. It smells like this. Trump tried to put Russia in its place. He couldn't. He tried to put China in its place. He couldn't. He tried to put India in its place. He couldn't. He tried to put the Houthis in their place. He couldn't. Well, maybe he can destroy the Venezuelans. That's what it looks like. A very obvious pretext. And it all smells like George Herbert Walker Bush in like some kind of weird amalgamation of Iraq and Panama. First it was Noriega, and if you guys remember, when Bush Sr. first got to Washington, he had a reputation of being a little weakling, which was crazily not true at all. Like Ronald Reagan was the president that avoided war, that didn't serve in the military, whereas George Herbert Walker Bush was like, fought in World War II, was in the CIA and all this other stuff. But he had a reputation when he got to the White House as being a weakling. And the media literally said after he took out Noriega, oh, no one thinks that anymore. And then the same, and then of course, Maduro actually looks like Saddam Hussein. So the comparisons there are obvious. But the other thing too that this seems, well, I shouldn't say reminds us of, because we just heard about this, which was the story that came out in the New York Times about this failed operation during the first Trump administration. I'll talk about this in a second. But first, I should obviously say, because this is the New York Times, which is a source of fake news, but it's hard to imagine they completely fabricated every word of this story. You just have to look for what their angle is. And I think what their angle is this. This is trying to prevent a rapprochement between Trump and Putin. Like, hey, Putin, don't let Trump come to Moscow. He might try this on your turf, which what I'm talking about is this New York Times article claims, and apparently it's a very long article, which claims that literally whilst Trump was in North Korea, he authorized a top secret SEAL Team 6 mission to go to North Korea and attach a listening device to try to intercept North Korean officials' communications so as to somehow give him some leverage over Kim Jong-un in some way. And what happened was, I'll take this off the screen. What happened was the Navy SEALs came in, saw someone who thought was maybe North Korean military, thought they were spotted, opened fire and murdered everybody on this boat, which turned out to be a fishing boat, killed everybody on board. And so then they actually took their corpses and stabbed them in the lungs so that they would sink to the bottom of the ocean and wouldn't be, or the sea, or wouldn't be found. And so, I mean, first off, wow. When we were supposedly negotiating in good faith with North Korea, we were actually secretly conspiring to bug Kim Jong-un's offices, and in the process accidentally murdered some civilians and desecrated their bodies to cover up the crime. Whoops-a-daisy. You know, I'll bet this story got heard in more than a few foreign capitals this week. I'll bet. And the message, combined with the message of that time this year when Trump bragged about knowing about Israel's plan to murder the Iranian negotiators, what country in the world would ever negotiate with us at this point? Anyway, so just something about that article on Trump sinking that Venezuelan alleged drug boat, which, by the way, I don't believe this story for 1 second, because if it was a Venezuelan drug boat, why not just intercept it? Why not arrest the narco terrorists, show everybody the drugs you've intercepted and where they were going, which, by the way, could not possibly have been the United States because they didn't have enough fuel in their little boat for it. But never mind that. You know, arrest the narco traffickers, make a scene of it, take it to the UN. Hey, here's these narco terrorists waging their war of terrorism against the United States. No, it's the usual US tactic. Kill them all and destroy all the evidence. Same tactic with Osama bin Laden, interestingly, but that's a whole other story for another night. Anyway, what other things did Trump do this week? Oh, yes, he also floated red flag laws. There was, of course, a horrific transgender shooting in, I want to say, Minnesota this week, but that could be wrong. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was someplace else. I think it was someplace else. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So Trump floated, and other people talked about this also. Let's not allow transgenders to have gun rights, which all of the gun rights organizations, even the weakest one, the NRA, all of them, the NRA, Gun Owners of America, National Association for Gun Rights, and there's many more, all of them came out against this because they all know exactly what this would be used for, which is not just against trainees, but opening a legal door for every other kind of saying, we don't think you're mentally fit to own a firearm. You're a danger to yourself. You're a danger to others. Someone actually I saw posted on X, a really great post, which is like, every single thing that Trump does to overstep his authority will be abused twice as much than when the Democrats can. And that is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Trump has now put out this statement against flag burning, direct attack on the First Amendment. Going after where it's easy, of course, you know, because people are generally opposed to the burning of flags. It seems pointless and stupid. And those of us who like our country don't like, you know, seeing our flags burned. But those of us who love our Constitution understand that this is the most important kind of speech to protect, is the speech you hate the most. And the order was written very clumsily so as to make it look like, oh, no, we're not legalizing anything that the Constitution doesn't allow. But then why even do it if it doesn't change anything? And then, of course, there's all kinds of other things he's doing, like deporting people he doesn't like, et cetera, et cetera. And this goes on and on and on. So, yeah, how would you like it if Joe Biden had authority to bring the National Guard troops into cities and towns he doesn't like? Because that's what's going to come. Anyway, all very, very disappointing stuff. And of course, the other thing hanging over all of this past week was the return of Congress, and therefore the return of action on the Epstein case, and in particular, the Epstein Files Transparency Act and Representative Thomas Massey's discharge petition to force a vote in the U.S. House of Representatives on it, which, according to Massey, as of Friday, has 214 signers of the 218 required. 214 out of 218. So he's for what he says 99% sure that there will be a vote on this. And there was this big hearing on Capitol Hill this past week, where Epstein survivors came out and Trump responded to this by saying that no, it's all a big hoax. Here's what Trump says. This is literally like as there is a press conference going on on Capitol Hill here, and this is what Trump says.
Mr. President, right now, there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massey, who was sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation.
Okay, so you get the idea. There's survivors on Capitol Hill. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Justin Amash, who may have been wrong in supporting the impeachment of Trump in 2018, I want to say, said this about this incident. Epstein survivors should not have to hear the president of the United States referring to their ordeal as a hoax. Their remarks are disgusting. Everything about them, including his many attempts to change the subject. Oh, he's not wrong. He is not wrong. And in fact, there was also this other bombshell from the venerable James O'Keefe, who got this beauty, long-standing, high-level Department of Justice operative, and here is what they caught him on tape saying.
But those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal Democratic people in those files.
And they visited that Maxwell person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something to keep it on shut.
That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of Enforcement Operations, Joseph Schnitt, telling a stranger about the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Schnitt.
You gotta love the fact that for years, year after year after year, O'Keefe gets all these government officials popped in these honey traps. So he says, yeah, just telling a stranger about all these things. Of course, it's, you can tell the guy's on a date with a hot babe who doesn't know is wearing a wire. Which again, DOJ. You think those folks would know better, but no. And of course, God bless James O'Keefe for going where the truth is, which was in this case this DOJ official saying that the Epstein files being released is only going to help Republicans because they're going to leave all the Democrats' names on the list and take off all the Republicans' names. Well, that's just great. And obviously that means we just drop the subject, right? Shouldn't we stop talking about the Epstein files? Why does Trump even oppose them if that's going to happen? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But when stories don't make sense, that means there's something missing. And then, of course, there was this crazy story where an Epstein victim's lawyer claimed that President Trump himself was an FBI agent, secretly helping to take down Jeffrey Epstein since 2009. He says Trump supplied FBI investigators with critical information that advanced their case, adds that Trump was never a suspect and now wants him to release everything. What's this about?
Thank you all for being here. I'll go first and then I'll let them. They're much more important than me, but I don't understand why it's a hostile act. I can tell you that I talked to President Trump back in 2009, and several times after that, he didn't think that it was a hoax then. In fact, he helped me. He got on the phone. He told me things that were helping our investigation. Now, our investigation wasn't looking into him, but he was helping us then. He didn't treat this as a hoax. So at this point in time, I would hope that he would revert back to what he was saying to get elected, which is, I want transparency. This about face that occurred, none of us understand it. In fact, I don't understand how this is an issue that's even up for debate. How do you not stand behind these women after you've heard their stories and know that hundreds of them were abused, and it was only because files are being kept in secrecy? The world should know who he is, who protected him, and the other.
So there you go. All solid points, although that's weird that lawyer says that Donald Trump. He said first he said President Clinton, then he said Trump in 2009, so it'd be before Trump was president. Told him all this stuff, which would, to me, it sounds like that makes this lawyer a witness in the case if he's claiming that Trump told him these things. But anyway, this is a story that will not go away, and it won't go away for a reason, because it does matter if there is a pedophile sex trafficking blackmail network in this earth or this country. So in sum total, folks, what is going on here? Trump has become, well, first of all, geopolitically, there's been this huge geopolitical shift to Asia. Trump couldn't stop it. He's become increasingly neoconish because he couldn't speak the truth about Russia, which was that this whole Ukraine war operation was a bunch of BS from the Europeans, the globalists, NATO, and Biden, which he was also a victim in some ways. We don't want to do that. So he's been attacking Putin, attacking Russia all the time. He and his administration officials come out and say, oh, those evil Russians are killing Ukrainian civilians. Just complete bullshit. Now he's attacking Venezuela, just like Bush attacked Panama and Iraq. So he's behaving just like a neocon in every single freaking way. Spending money like crazy, being a tyrant, ignoring the Constitution, attacking political opponents, some of which I don't mind because it's justice, but in many cases it's not. Certainly not going after Thomas Massey. Everything that MAGA stood for, Trump has now betrayed. He's pro-vaccines, he's pro-AI, he's pro-war, he's pro-spending. There are small elements of good coming out of this administration, mostly from Bobby Kennedy, who had an amazing hearing on the Hill this week. That's why they're going after him in Congress. But by and large, Trump's administration they don't know what they're doing. Most of them, except for the neocons, who do know what they're doing, they're destroying Trump. They have put him into this box where he can't speak the truth about Ukraine and Russia. He can't speak the truth about China. He's been forced to just jabber the same gibberish as the Europeans. And yet, even though he's resisting what the Europeans want him to do, he's got nowhere to go. So what's happened at this point is the trade policy is a mess. Because there's no putting this stuff back in the bag. There's no getting India back on side now. That's not going to happen. And the neocons know how Trump works. They know he can never admit he's wrong. So like they've got him on vaccines forever. They've now got him on this other stuff forever. So we are back in 2005, folks. That's where we are. And what happened between 2005 and 2008? Well, the events were set in motion that led to Barack Obama becoming president. That's what happened in 2008. Because what happened? Remember in 2007? You had one man run for president, Ron Paul, who said all the stuff the mainstream Republicans are saying has led us into a mess. The budget's out of whack. Our economy's in shambles. We're spending all this money on garbage. We're losing wars. We're alienating ourselves from the world. And the Republican mainstream said, oh, that idiot Ron Paul. Let's elect a smart, sensible conservative in the makings, in the mold of George Walker Bush. And they nominated John McCain, who proceeded to get clobbered the next election. And then in the next time around, Mitt Romney in 2012, again, another run-of-the-mill Republican. And then in 2016, the Republican Party, having churned through 2 presidential cycles of losses and soul-searching, found the guy, Donald Trump, who said, Bush's foreign policy was a disaster. We should focus on America, close our border, America first, all this other stuff. And we loved it, and we elected him. And where are we now? Right back where we were those 8 years ago. Only now the situation is irreparable because now the whole world economy and in industry and increasingly finances are in Asia. And there's no coming back from this. Instead of having an America first presidency, we've had an Israel first presidency. And we've been just selling all of our weapons to Ukraine, selling our weapons to NATO to give to Ukraine, selling our weapons to NATO, who is funded by the US. So giving away our military to Ukraine to be turned into rubble, scrap, and to Israel for the same reason. And we're just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So this is, I think, the last time I will do a stream like this, at least for a long time, because frankly, I think the moment we're in here says enough. And it's not going to change. It's just going to fester and rot for a long time to come. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Trump administration does the right thing, but I'm increasingly seeing it go the wrong way. J.D. Vance's comments saying how great it was that Trump bombed this boat was ridiculous. Trump's administration's Trump's I don't know what the word is, but his megalomania is rubbing off on his staff too, on Vance, and Rubio didn't need any of it. But on Peter Navarro and all these other guys, all these other clowns. And the neocons have taken over this administration, and it's just become disaster after disaster after disaster. And all this stuff is going to start to materialize in the economy, folks. Not to mention what's going to happen when Russia finally wins the war. That's going to happen in the next probably 6 months, but certainly in the next 4 years. So it's a real mess, folks. So coming back next week, I promise, and this time I mean it, we'll be talking about Michigan stuff again. No more of this national stuff. It's no good news, and I know no one likes to hear it, but that's where things are. That's where things are, and they're a big mess. So thanks for bearing with this rather somber stream tonight, folks. I'll try to get a more chipper one going with some good stuff happening in Michigan. Obviously not talking about Whitmer because nothing good's happening there, but that's a whole other story. So I think, though, for tonight, that will do it. Mark Ashley Price. Let me read a couple of other comments, too. Jay, going back a while, said at least one state university gives all students the same tuition rate. So all out-of-state and international students pay the same as Michigan resident students. That means the taxpayers of Michigan are subsidizing all students, not just Michigan students. Yeah, actually, yeah. Foreign students and illegals are subject to in-state tuition, whereas people from out of state, like me, by the way, had to pay full price. So that's great. Mark Ashley Price says Donald J. Trump is the greatest president ever. I disagree. He says, am I mad? Yes. Says Bobby Kennedy Jr. is the greatest. I had my concerns about him at first, but he proved great in my book. Yes, he has. I do agree with that. Mark also says, I was literally crying in a bad way when Obama won the presidency and Sarah Palin lost the vice presidency. Yeah, I agree. But it wasn't Sarah Palin's fault. She had a bad running mate. Put it that way. But again, this is what happens when Republicans forsake their principles. If we remember our principles, limited government, sound money, free markets, closed borders, things would be different. And by the way, even on that score, secure borders. By the way, if Trump's borders are so secure, why is he so worried about fentanyl coming in? But beyond that, how about those 600,000 Chinese students, huh? Patty P says next week will be the weekend before Mackinac. I don't think I'm going to Mackinac, actually. I still haven't gotten a ticket. I don't think I want to. I don't know what I do. I don't like those kind of events in general, but I certainly don't like them when everybody else is having a blast and saying how great things are going and yeah, we're going to win everything. And I'm like, I don't think so, folks. I don't know. I may go. We'll see. I'm going to probably use the puppy excuse. Sorry, I got a dog at home. I can't leave her. Something like that. We'll see. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in this week. Again, next week, back to Michigan, I swear. Until then, thanks for all you do for liberty. Until then,